Meeting audio and video recorded. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. First order of business, roll call. Richard Birch, the chairman, is absent tonight, and I'll be acting chair. Todd Dwyer. Bob Pease.
Present.
Katie Childs.
Present.
Carl Luck.
Present.
Jack Rabbit.
Present.
Ken Jones.
Present.
And Associate Member Jeffrey Viviano's absent this evening. Any announcements from the commission?
No.
Some good news, perhaps. Basically, Hickory Hills is formed a stormwater committee to start addressing stormwater issues within their basin. And I will be a member, and with the approval of the board, I would act as a liaison between them, or I could just go sit and be quiet, or whatever, whatever I could do. But I would prefer that if I am working with this board, that previously when we did the submissions on the drawdown, I recuse myself all the time from any of those discussions. I would ask permission of the board to participate in those if they do come forward with material. I would ask that I would be allowed to participate, even though there's no direct, benefit to myself aside from acting between the two groups. So, unless there's an objection, I'll proceed that way.
You'd have to go to the Board of Selectmen for the
For the
exemption.
approval to do that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Any other announcements? Seeing none, any announcements from the public? Seeing none, we'll go to our first appointment. First on our agenda is Mr. Drew Tobin, who's going to update us on his Eagle Scout project.
Hello, I'm Drew Tobin. I'm from Troop 1728 Lunenburg. Currently working on my Eagle Scout project, and my Eagle Scout project is making bat houses, and I'm hoping to put them up on conservation land as well as other land around town. So I do have an estimate on the price to make to mount and make 4 of them. It is going to cost $442 as an estimate. But I would be hoping to put this on the Hollis Road pollinator habitat, and then this would be 4 of them, and then you can mount 2 on a post.
So is it 4 houses, 2 mounted on a post each?
Yes,
How tall are the posts?
16 feet.
16 feet tall?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how deep you're gonna have to dig the bases to get a 16-foot pole to?
I do not know.
All right. The only issue, the reason why I bring that up is it might be something you wanna think about, because there's a lot of ledge up there.
Okay.
So you may not get super deep. So
Okay.
that may change where you wanna put them.
Okay.
So you may wanna dig some test holes before you decide where you wanna put them. I think it's a great spot to put them, but just be aware.
Yeah, they are best in the sun light, so, and I know that's pretty
Yeah,
good
there's
in
definitely
there.
some sunny spots
Yeah.
up there, but you may not be able to dig
Yeah.
very deep. So, just something to think
You can
about.
approve up to that, yeah.
Now, will you be selling these bat houses to the regular population as well as part of this project, or?
I guess that could be an option.
$100 each?
What?
$100 for 2 on a post, is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, 2 would fit on a post, and then, I mean, just this estimate to make 4 of them and mount 4 of them, it cost $440, so,
So 110 each.
yeah.
You win a business, I'll buy one. Okay? Well, I could use it on the property.
I have other people that said they'd like to buy some, so
Yeah.
sure, it's an option.
Sign me up with one. Come on, you guys. Come on, slow it down, Kyle. Yeah, I'll take one.
And you anticipate to do that this spring?
Yes,
What was the time frame in the spring? Yeah, as soon as,
yeah, as soon as the snow melts, I'd like to get going.
okay. I'll accept a motion to approve what was the total,
$42.
$442 for
Do you need
the bat
do you need
houses?
money from us, or are you gonna do
I
fundraising,
was
or-
hoping to fundraise, but if I'm not able to get enough.
If I may, the way it happened with our last Eagle Scout, we approved up to that amount of money in case he couldn't fundraise enough.
Yeah, that's fine.
And he was able to fundraise on his own.
Yeah.
So this motion would be to fund up to that. So you would try to fundraise, and whatever you couldn't fundraise, we could fund the difference, or if you were unsuccessful in being able to fundraise, we'd help you out.
Okay.
So either way, you'll be good.
At the bridge?
I move we approve up to 442.
What about 500, that way in case you need a little bit of extra or something? Does that make
Up to
sense?
$500 from the Hawes Gift Fund.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you have any questions or whatever, I'm pretty familiar with the site, so just go
Okay.
through the map, and you can get a hold of me, and I'll come give you a hand or something.
Thank you.
All right.
Our next appointment this evening for 72 Hemlock, a request for a field change. It doesn't appear there's a representative for 72 Hemlock this evening, so we'll put that off in case they do show up later in the meeting. With that, we'll open our first hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended, in the Lunenburg Wetlands bylaws and regulations as listed in Chapter 239, Wilbur Abbott III has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a common driveway within the 100-foot buffer zone at 335 Chase Road.
Is there a place in particular that we set up?
I think over here, so that way the audience can see and we can see as well. And this will be for Lot 1, and we'll take them one at as a time as we step through the hearing.
So this would be for the crossing first?
Correct.
Correct.
You do know that seeing as we don't schedule specific times for our hearings, meaning like 7:10, 7:05, you could probably do the driveway and the 3 lots in block form with a motion.
So do we have to read all 3 warnings then?
You probably should.
I think it probably makes sense to do that, right?
Yeah.
You want to open all 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way you can talk about the project as a whole.
I would agree, they're kind of all tied into one another, so.
Are there any abutters here for this project? I was just gonna, since there's no abutters here, I was gonna ask if they objected, so you
I think that's a good suggestion. So we'll open the other 2 hearings associated with this development pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Lunenburg Wetland Bylaw and regulations as listed in Chapter 239. Wilbur Abbott III has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home with a driveway and septic within the 100-foot buffer zone at 335 Chase Road, Lot Number 2. And pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Lunenburg Wetlands bylaws and regulations as listed in Chapter 239, Wilbur Abbott III has filed a notice of intent for construction of a single-family home with a driveway and septic within the 100-foot buffer zone at 335 Chase Road, Lot Number 3.
For the record, Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering here on behalf of Wilbur L. Abbott III Revocable Trust for the construction of 2 single-family homes in a common driveway system. Currently, the property contains a single-family home with associated drive access off of Chase Road, with the site being predominantly woodland, with the exception of a grass field in the back portion of the property at this state. There are areas jurisdictional, pretty much isolated to a bordering vegetated wetland that's located on the property. There is a fire pond that is located along the westerly property line, and the wetland series seems to follow that general area. In addition, there is a finger-like projection of a bordering vegetated wetland that extends up along the Northfield side of the road project, and is associated with a drainage ditch that comes off of Chase Road and the associated drainage area. Currently, the property has gone through the A&R process with the planning board to subdivide the land into 3 separate lots. So the filing for the purposes of tonight are associated with the common driveway, lots 2 and 3's single-family homes and grading and everything like that. For the purposes of the filing, we separated the common driveway from the two house lots, only because we don't know which lot's going to be built first. This way, one lot does not get hit with a crossing, and in the event that one house gets built before another, it can go forward and the common drive can just be built out, just to help with paperwork, if you will. So, as part of the project, we're proposing a common driveway access off of Northfield Road. This crossing, or this common driveway will require a wetland crossing along Northfield Road. This location of the common driveway was chosen in order to minimize the overall impact onto the wetland area, as this is one of the smaller area crossing points within the wetland projection area. As part of this, we'll be proposing to construct a beehive grate with a throat structure on the upland portion of the common driveway entrance to capture the runoff coming through the drainage ditch and then discharging it further downland. There will be riprap placed around the outfall locations and around the collection point of the actual beehive grate system in order to minimize any kind of scour or anything like that post-construction. At the end of the day, there will be an alteration of approximately 395 square feet, so we're less than 500 square feet, with a total replication area being provided of 721 square feet. That will be located just down gradient of the actual outlet fall location. In order to facilitate the construction and usability of this crossing, we'll be proposing to construct a retaining wall along the down gradient portion of the crossing. This will allow for us to provide a 5-foot shoulder immediately up along the driveway in order to ease the use of the driveway and to allow for some snow storage during the winter months. Along the bottom portion of the retaining wall, we'll be placing another 5 to 6 foot riprap crushed stone pad between the wall and the actual replication area. This was done in order to prevent any kind of direct snowfall onto the replication area. It provides an extra little bit of protection for that area to prevent any kind of future damage to it and to ensure its longevity. So as part of the common driveway filing, essentially the driveway will be extended to the portion that is non-common, which is essentially the split point between the two drives, and at which point the proposed work for each of the individual houses would take over. So, as I stated earlier, there are two proposed house lots. Lot number 2, which is located immediately along Northfield Road. Work associated with that will be with the construction of the driveway and the house and general grading around the site in order to facilitate the use of the built property. We are requesting a waiver from the 30-foot no-touch zone for this lot. We're requesting this primarily due to the grading and natural features of the land. In order to construct the house and the drive, we'll be actually cutting into the hillside. This will create a natural/artificial berm between the wetland resource area and the actual construction, so there won't be any direct runoff going into the wetland area. So we're providing that natural barrier as more of as a mitigation feature to the actual site. So during construction, any runoff, and post-construction, any runoff will be pitched towards into the property. And during construction, if erosion issues do come to light, we'll be providing additional erosion control measures internally within the property to mitigate those features.
You're talking about lot 2, right?
This lot 2. Lot number 3 is the proposed house that's located near the rear of the property. The majority of the work for this will be associated with the construction of the driveway and the house, with additional grading around the property in order to, again, facilitate construction. There won't be any additional work within the 30-foot no-touch zone, so no waiver is requested for this work. Along the entire perimeter of our lower down-gradient portion of the property, straw wattle and silt fence will be utilized as erosion control features to prevent any soil migration. And upon the completion of construction, the site will be loamed and seeded for permanent stabilization. It's pretty much the gist of the project. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Do you have any more copies of the drawing? Do we?
Here you go, take this one.
The other one, I think.
I do have another large-scale plan if you'd
Can you
like
help me
that.
understand why you're putting the beehive at the beginning of the culvert under the driveway?
So it's because the driveway is going to be elevated above that drainage ditch. We're doing a throat system with the beehive grave on top of it. So the throat on the actual inlet structure will be set a few inches above the crushed stone. So that's going to allow for immediate dropping in and collection of the rainwater. In the event that it's a large storm event or any kind of debris gets into that area, the beehive grate will allow for additional flow to go through there, so we're not blowing out the driveway in the future.
So is there going to be a pipe under the driveway?
Yes.
Yes. it's shown. What's the diameter of the pipe that's not shown on the drawing?
18. If you look on the expanded version on the upper left portion of the plan.
I was trying to figure out where that stream came from. It looks to me like, and I couldn't see anything on the other side of the road, so I'm assuming it's all storm drain?
Yes, from what I can tell, it is all storm drain. There was a question raised by DEP, so we're going to take a second look at it, make sure that it's not draining from any resource areas, upgrading of it. If it does, it would be classified as intermittent, but per my review of being on the site and looking at Mass GIS, I didn't see any wetland area in the immediate vicinity.
So my thought was, if I look at the amount of erosion in the bottom of that gully, it looks like sometimes that flows real hard, and I was just wondering about the 18-inch diameter pipe.
We went with the 18-inch diameter pipe because that's what's already being discharged into it. It's at a 6% slope, so it's a pretty decent-sized pipe for that kind of a flow. So we're expecting that would be more than sufficient in order to facilitate those flows.
And are you assuming it's an intermittent flow?
Yes, we're presuming that it's more of a drainage ditch rather than consistent flow.
Because I think, well, I personally was surprised when we went out for a site walk this past weekend that it was flowing quite vigorously at that time.
Okay.
It may have been, some melting going on and whatnot, but it was pretty cold, so I think all of us, or at least I personally was surprised to see it flowing. So I kind of share Bob's concern that, to make sure that's sized adequately and we don't put something in there that's going to fail immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I've seen that drainage ditch flow in, significant rainstorm events. It flows hard.
Is there a reason why you would use the structure that's shown on the plans versus just doing like an open bottom culvert or something like that?
This design was chosen primarily just for easy construction, and primarily, a portion of it was cost concern, doing an open box culvert and trying not to impact that area, because at that point we start getting into difficult sizing and construction ability, because there's some cover over the pipe, but just enough in order to make it work for a driveway. Yeah. Putting a box culvert will start eliminating that and make the driveway more prone to frost issues in the future.
Sure. I mean, I guess my concern is that the grate gets blocked and then we get it back up in the ditch and then it causes even more problems because then we get a washout of the driveway.
Yep. I believe per the zoning bylaw, I think we need to have an agreement for the common driveway in the future, just for general maintenance for the DPW. I'm sure that can be incorporated into that document, that as part of the overall maintenance of the common driveway, maintenance of that drainage system is to be required.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I share the same concern. I've seen 18-inch pipes plugged pretty easily, and what happens then. But so, will we have this maintenance plan now? I mean,
we can provide the maintenance plan.
yeah, we should, because somebody's going to have to maintain it, or it's going to plug.
My experience with things like beehive entrances is that in the fall, they get easily blocked with leaves. Am I wrong about that?
You are not wrong about that, but
So then why do we put that there instead of an open culvert?
because the beehive grate is more of a redundant feature. The throat system it's a 2-foot wide open 6-inch strip that's along the bottom portion of the site, structure. That's in a short circuit, if you will, for lack of a better term, the runoff coming off that area. So if for some reason that one of those outlets gets blocked. And
Gotcha.
Yep.
so it's more of a,
He showed me, never mind.
Was that detail on the second page?
It's on the second page, you can see the 6-inch concrete cap, then below the cap, there's an opening into the manhole, or the drop structure.
it's very similar to what you would expect to see in a detention basin, as a more of a emergency feature rather than anything else. That's the best way to.
The grate is an emergency feature? or-
So,
The grate will be the redundant feature on the
Okay.
feature, on the unit.
Can you show on the plans where this area is, where you're asking for a waiver of the 30-foot buffer? Because
On lot 2.
maybe Todd can show. What you're saying is what
Yeah, I'd appreciate.
Lot 2 is this
if you
lot.
wouldn't mind showing us, yeah.
This is lot 2.
yeah, so
So
you
that's what
start
the waiver
grading
is.
within the 30 right now.
Yeah, but it's within the 30 of the drainage ditch.
Correct.
That's, the resource area that he's talking about.
Yep.
There is work within the 30-foot zone, but you're digging into the hill, creating artificial berm / natural berm in that area. So runoff from the property in this entire area, we actually pitch back in towards the site, away from the wetland area. So there's longer travel path from the disturbed area to the actual resource area.
Thank you.
Very confused.
A waiver.
Oh, I see.
That comes into the 30 where
The
the grade
grading.
is. But what he's saying is it's gonna be pitched back towards the house and the property. 90.
So, you show some extensive filling on the site. Are you gonna balance the site where, or are you
It's-
bringing in fill, or?
It's probable that there's going to be a little more fill brought in than being excavated. Most of the majority of the cut will be around the actual house number 2 with fill in that area. But I would believe this site's going to be a net import site than an export site.
Do you know how many yards you're gonna have to bring in?
No, I haven't done a formal calculation for that.
And why is that necessary? Why can't things be moved a little bit to stay out of the 30-foot?
Within which area?
Why is it I don't know which mic's working. Why is it necessary to go into the 30-foot? Why can't things be moved around a little bit?
We're doing that in order to help alleviate the amount of grading that's required for the driveway. Because the common driveway, we have to meet certain grades. And during the design process, we moved the house around and everything like that, try to play around, but at the end of the day, you really can't make a usable driveway that's safe for the general use. But this location that we've determined allows for a more gentler slope going into the drive. We're already using a deeper foundation pour in order to eliminate some of that cut and fill and make that area work a little bit better. But we can take a second look and see if there's a potential way to try to mitigate that. But the way that it's designed now is to allow for safe use of the driveway.
Is there a particular reason why
Can't tell where the driveway is.
you wouldn't move the house further,
It's one side, right?
plan right, which is, I guess, south,
The other side.
to stay away from the resource area and pull the grading out of the 30?
I think that leads to Mr. Luck's comment, so we can take a second look and see if we can move around some of the drainage, or some of the septic components and everything like that.
We performed a sidewalk on Saturday. I don't recall the vegetation there. It just seemed to be lightly wooded along the ditch. Is that?
Correct, yeah. It's a little more thicker during the summer months, but it's generally just some tall trees and low growth.
Yeah, there were some big trees along that property line by the road.
Would the grading require removal of any trees within the 30?
There will be some removal, but I believe most of the grading will run along the actual tree line. There will be a small portion, a little bit closer to lot 1, if you will, towards the east.
Mr. Chairman, so for us folks down this end, and potentially the audiences at home, could you go over and point to the areas that you're referencing versus us trying to take a guess?
So the existing tree line runs along here, so the general grading will be required in this area, so there will be some tree clearing. as part of the overall construction.
You know, personally, I'd like to see, one, if you can, possibly take a harder look to try and keep the grading out of the 30-foot.
Right.
Also, any trees within the 30 or 50 that are going to be removed that are, I'd say, greater than 6 inches in diameter should be marked on the plan.
And I'd like to see them marked in the field.
Yeah, there was nothing with the exception of the septic systems
Right.
flagged.
I was not aware that the commission was doing a sidewalk last week, so.
I'd like to know more about where that storm drain came from. I was more than a little surprised to see the flow in there, because we hadn't had a lot of, any precipitation, and it wasn't all that, it was cold that day. I remember it being cold.
It was cold.
So there wasn't a lot of melting, so, and that was flowing pretty darn good. So I'd like, maybe you could ask the state DOT or something, you know, like, where's that culvert come from? Because it was flowing pretty good. And I'd like to know a little bit more about what generates all that flow down there.
Okay.
Because we have to continue this till next week anyway, because you don't have a DEP number.
So far, most of our comments have focused on the northern lot 2. Comments on any of the other lots?
No, I mean, I think I share the same concerns with the driveway crossing and the size of the culvert and, you know, the amount of flow that's gonna go through there. So maybe another look at that and then see if we can rework that out of the 30 and get some trees marked on the plans and on the ground.
So any trees that would be within that 30-foot no-touch zone marked on the plan.
Is it,
If I were to remove the grading from that area, I wouldn't need, the commission wouldn't be concerned as much about that.
although we're still concerned within 50, so, what, could you identify, I can't tell in this print, any other activity within the 50 feet?
So on lot 2, there will be, again, the general grading for the actual driveway cut within the 50-foot on this area through here. There will be some grading around the actual entrance or for the driveway crossing, just to allow for grading, just whatnot in that area. And then as you come, that'll be pretty much isolated just to lot number 2. As you come through lot number 3, if you will, you have to provide some additional grading along the driveway down gradient side of everything, and around the house in this area, but while maintaining the 30-foot no touch. Again, to this house, we are using a deeper foundation pour to help alleviate that slope coming through that area. And after the completion of construction, this area will be loam seeded for permanent stabilization.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, is there any detail about the replication area that I might have missed it?
At this point, no. We are currently
Just trying to figure out where the commission's
Okay.
needs and wants are right now. But
I think, and I'm speaking for myself here, that if you do feel it's, you're unable to stay out of the 30-foot zone, that's something, to Katie's comment, we'd certainly want to see as a mitigation for the intrusion into the 30.
for the lot number 2.
Yes. Go ahead, Carl.
Just on the, Katie reminded me, on the replication, I see it's a 1.8 to 1. I thought 2 to 1 was the requirement.
Matt, can you speak to that?
I don't recall 2-1 being in our regulations.
No.
I thought it was still a 1-to-1.
Okay.
Okay. I also noticed on the plan that you have a well planned for Lot 3. It's within the 50-foot buffer zone, but there's no details regarding the well. I guess what I'm really concerned about is the excavation that may be required to level the site to allow a drill rig to get in there to adequately drill that well, and the influence that may have. Because, you know, we'd want even the installation of that to stay out of the 30-foot as well. So we'd like to see at least a, detail and where you plan to set the rig up to drill that well, and just so we can understand the impacts that that construction may have.
Yeah, just due to the, like you said before, the fill and everything, the construction in that area, the well would probably be one of the first things put in. At least have the casing drilled and everything like that, minus the head. And in that area, it is a little steep, but hey,
Well, if they need to bring in fill, to put it on the slope, to level it for a rig to get in there to drill, we just want to understand where that fill's going to be, how it's going to be positioned on the slope, just so we can see, understand everything that goes on there. Jack?
Mr. Chairman, I share Bob's concern. I was surprised when we saw all the water moving through there, and I was questioning initially, and we couldn't discuss it, but is this really an intermittent stream? You believe it is to be? It is?
It's not listed as a perennial on the,
No?
it's not listed as a perennial on the maps. If it's not listed as a perennial, it's presumed to be intermittent.
Okay.
And from my experience being on the site during the summer months, it runs
It dries out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, if it was dry in the summer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
A lot of flow through there.
Unfortunately, we're in that time of year where the groundwater is starting to rebound, and any kind of meltage or any kind of runoff just
Okay.
unfortunately evaporates itself.
How, maybe Matt knows, how in cases like this do you, how do you estimate the flow, like in a 100-year storm or something? How do you estimate what that culvert's got to take?
We do have some means of calculating it. It's a very generic method, so we can do a quick analysis just to estimate the estimated flow. But as I said earlier, there's currently an 18-inch pipe coming off the roadway system now. So our mindset or theory behind everything is that if an 18-inch pipe is discharging into it and it's not collecting a significant portion of runoff from the discharge point from the 18 from the road to our culvert, an 18-inch would suffice. Also, it's at a 6% slope, so that's a pretty decent slope for an 18-inch pipe. Typically, if you were to have an 18-inch pipe in the ground, it's sitting around a 1% slope. So this pipe is substantially sized and at a decent slope to start moving water as much as possible. Yep. Which is why we have the dual feature within that capture structure.
So at the end of the pipe, it appears you have some riprap. You don't have size of the riprap specified on the plans, or at least I can't see it on this plan.
I'll double check, but it might be on the actual detail sheet. Second sheet. For the outlet.
Yeah, there's riprap apron right in the middle top.
Yep. Stone for pipe ends, mass, yep, okay.
It's usually a 6 to 8 inch stone.
Yep. Any other questions from the commission? Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, and with the applicant's permissions, we don't have the DEP number yet, we're going to have to continue. I'd like to continue this hearing until our next hearing on...
March 4th.
On March 4th.
March 4th.
March 4th.
Do we want to do another site visit to see if there's going to be any trees or anything that are going to be marked for removal?
I think that's a fantastic idea. If we do a site visit, it'll be on the preceding Saturday, which is February 29th.
And if we're gonna do a site visit, it would be great if it could be clearly staked. I mean, on the plan, it said, the driveway's by stake A7. I couldn't find stake A7.
Yeah, wetland flag A7, right?
So, be great if it could be clearly flagged, marked where the driveway's gonna be.
Yep. I will talk to the applicant and my survey department and see what we can do.
Thank you.
So the crossing, all trees that are going to be removed, flag those, and if you still consider where we're going to have intrusions into 30-foot, if we could highlight those areas on site with some flags, so we understand and can see the impacts while we walk, that'd be great.
And what time on the 29th would?
9:30? 9?
9.
9.
9 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because if I'm there, I know the site very well.
Great.
So I can walk the commission through all the site features a little bit better than you guys just walking around, so.
Fantastic. With that, I'll accept a motion to continue these 3 hearings until March 4th.
So move.
Motion?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open our next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Lunenburg Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations, as listed in Chapter 239. Dan and Jean Proctor have filed a notice of intent for the removal of earth and stormwater management within the 100-foot buffer zone at 1325 Mass Avenue.
Can I go first?
Yes.
All right, Mr. McPartlin? Yes. Just a few things before you get started on your hearing, things that should be addressed. First of all, I had noted to you in previous hearings and previous meetings in the office concerning the area of critical environmental concern.
Yes.
About the status of a MEPA filing. And one of the things I had noted to you that based on your presentation and based on the standards, MEPA filing didn't appear to be necessary unless DOT's temporary access was going to require a permit. And I had asked for some type of notation from DOT. I noticed today in the mailing in what was left off in my office today, that there is now an E&F that's been filed with MEPA. So is this to assume that DOT is requiring a permit?
DOT wouldn't give me a definitive answer one way or the other. And based on feedback that we received during the Stormwater Planning Board review, we felt that the best thing at this time was to file the MEPA E&F and not potentially lose additional time.
Right, because, I mean, before the issues were raised in public meetings, when you and I spoke in the office about the thresholds on an ACEC, the one thing I noted was what would automatically trigger it would be a state permit. So you're just taking a conservative approach.
Correct, yes. Well, I reached out to the MassDOT reviewer, and their response was a lot of things can trigger a MEPA, and I felt at that time it wasn't best for me to push them for an answer on that.
Well, because I consulted with both MEPA and the director of the ACEC program, and their answers were both basically what I told you. It was almost identical to our conversation. Well, if DOT determines it's a permit, then it would trigger the threshold, which we both knew.
Yes.
So I think it's probably prudent that you took the conservative approach, but I wanted to find out for certain what DOT was saying.
Yes, and DOT was not forthcoming with a direct answer for me. Their response was many things can trigger MEPA, and I kind of read between the lines of that one sentence saying that I should probably go with the conservative route and file the E&F.
Well, yeah, I call that a plausible deniability type of answer.
Yes.
Non-committal, they do that a lot, but I mean, that is what it is. The other thing I would note, and I'm doing this for the commission's benefit as well as the public, Judy Schmidt from DEP called me late this afternoon regarding the comments that she originally submitted, which the commission had because I forwarded to all of you guys, and then you responded to them. I forwarded them to her this afternoon as well. But before she got those, she cited that she was concerned about a couple of things. One was to ensure that the Zone 2 issues relative to your drainage standards were cemented in with this commission so that we were sure it was within specification.
Yes.
The other thing was your data regarding your soils. She's telling me that, you know, you drew a lot of conclusions about your soils, but there is no, what do you call it? There was no data, no evidence presented, at least in sufficient amounts. Do you have pit testing data?
We have information that I received from the applicant for the test pits.
Okay. You should forward those to her so she can review them.
Yes.
Yeah, I told him that I told her I didn't see him, and you understand, this call came in like at 3 o'clock this afternoon, 4
Yeah.
o'clock. And it wasn't like she was like overly concerned, like this was some type of project killer. She just wanted the information for the files, and she wanted to verify your conclusion.
Yes, and that was the impression that I received from the comments that we received, and that was going to be my approach.
Okay. She also wanted me to make you guys aware that even though you're planning your stormwater mitigation for future development, that DEP is not going to consider a future development scenario. They're going to take it as it is now, and any subsequent work done on the site is going to be subject to a brand-new stormwater review. Now, that's nothing new. That's something that we had raised at the initial hearing. It's something that I know Mr. Luck had asked about, and he had asked me specifically, and I told him the same thing. DEP is requested that we note that on our order of conditions.
And that was an expected approach.
Yeah,
we
I know. I'm just letting you know what she said.
Definitely.
And that a lot of it's falling in line with items that we've already discussed. But she wants some paperwork just to firm it up. The other thing is, one thing she did tell me, and I was aware of this, I just didn't realize how soon it was going to be happening. Some of the MS4 regulations within the next year or two are going to be changing. Like, there's going to be more standards added in because of phasing with the new MS4 permit. So that's why she wanted it clear that any future development is going to have to be regionalized, because stormwater management standards as of right now and what we're doing are fine. But on a future development, it's going to have to go by more stringent stormwater standards.
Understood.
So that was it. And that was the Reader's Digest version.
Can I just ask one question? You referred to Zone 2? Is that the water district?
That's correct.
No,
Zone 2 of the aquifer zone.
And I thought...
state aquifer.
Stick...
So if I may jump in on this, this confused me quite a bit last meeting as well. So the project, the property is subject to both the town of Lunenburg zoning Zone 3 line, as well as the state Zone 2 line, and they're very close. I'm in the process of preparing an exhibit that I will be forwarding to you, as well as the planning board, just to address a comment that they had about land coverage within the Zone 3. So that should clear that up. They're not quite exactly the same, but they more or less cross the front.
You show on the plan.
I'll step over here. So this is labeled as the Zone 2 line from the state. This is actually no, excuse me. Yes, this is the state Zone 2 line. I'm still confusing myself with this. The town line does something like this. Not quite that extreme. They're tighter, but it almost has an opposite vector in this area. And when we were looking at it quickly at the last meeting, that led to my confusion. But,
Can you explain the difference between the Zone 2 and Zone 3?
yes, the Zone 2 triggers the standard 6 additional pre-treatment requirements, making part of the site a critical area. These requirements are the same requirements as if you're in the ACEs. So as far as our stormwater design goes, there's no change. It's just a matter of adding a few lines in the documentation. There's no additional requirements. The Zone 3 line is a town of Lunenburg zoning line. That has, there's within the Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3, there are different allowable and prohibited uses, as well as different documentation as to what you're allowed to clear off the site. Where this is a commercially zoned parcel within the town of Lunenburg Zone 3 line, you're allowed to clear 50%, you're allowed to disturb 50% of the existing land cover. And what I'm preparing for the planning board, based on a comment from one of the members, is an exhibit that documents our compliance with that.
So 50% of the land cover within the Zone 3 boundary?
Within the Zone 3, yes. So there's no jurisdiction or change or impact to the rest of the site based on the town of Lunenburg Zone 3.
Thank you.
That was the reason for the, I want to say, the February 4th and then February 6th submittal packages to you with basically that label change. I had a moment of panic that and I overreacted too quickly. And then in discussing that with Jeffrey Walsh from Graves Engineering, the planning board peer reviewer, he set me straight on that, and I've been dancing around it.
I would note that under both NEPA requirements and Zone 2 requirements, you do appear to meet the 44% based on your calculations going into the, and 44% removed prior to entrance into the basin.
That is correct. The intent.
4% of total suspended
Total
solids?
suspended solids.
Yes.
So the intent of the design, as has been documented on the plans, is that the 44% TSS removal is achieved using future deep sump catch basins, which will be constructed under Phase 2 to collect the stormwater with whatever that project is, and the sediment forebays located at each end and then the middle of the stormwater management basin. Those four bays were excluded from other stormwater management calcs, which lets us put them in the basin themselves. They're not counted in water quality volume or water recharge volume calcs.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Before you go, Carl, just to make it clear, that 44% means that anything that's taken out within the hardware of the drainage system before it enters that deep basin, 44% of the TSS has to be removed before it even hits the deep basin, under full construction.
And
That's what it means.
that is the additional requirement that we have to meet, being in an area of critical concern, and that has been how the site was designed from the beginning.
You mean, on any subject, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I missed the last meeting, I'm sorry, but I did listen to the tape. I need one of those forms. But one of the things that wasn't clear, I know was touched on, was the maintenance plan.
Yes.
And I wasn't quite sure how that got left, because the one thing that concerned me, and maybe it's been fixed, is that the maintenance plan just refers to the responsibility being the current owners, Mr. Proctor, I guess. Is that the way it was left last week, or is that going to be changed? Because it's concerning to me, because if, when it sells, it's no longer be him, so how do we know that it gets changed? Or, why wouldn't it just say the owner or something? I hate having a name that you know is going to change, and then nobody's responsible.
I go back and forth on that.
This afternoon.
Okay.
Some of my, one train of thought is it's always the current owner, and then another train of thought is it's always, you say to be determined, or property owner, something of that, and I almost flip-flop with that in every O&M manual to various towns, because one town wants it one way, document who's doing it now, and then other towns want it, document that who's doing it in the future. So I can certainly revise that responsibility page to document that the current owner is responsible for this, and then current, and then say future owner to assume responsibility, or something to that effect.
So what you're going to do is not what this is?
Not currently, no. No, but I certainly can make that change, the O&M manual.
Okay. So it'll be real clear that it goes with the owner
Yes,
of the property at that time?
yes.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that'll be in the order of
Well,
conditions.
conditions, that's what we agreed last week, last session.
But, I'm not comfortable having these things just in the order, I mean, this is the plan that has a name on it. Why wouldn't it be in this plan? And the order of conditions is,
Yeah, the
original
wetlands
order of
program will be
conditions.
carried out based on that agreement.
But the order of conditions is filed in the registry of deeds, and the plan is not.
And the order of conditions will reference the O&M plan.
And as part of the
I do agree that I think it should say the property owner or future property owner.
right.
and as part of addressing that condition of the order of conditions, I would include that in a revised plan package.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Quick point, if I may.
Go ahead.
Well, seeing as, the document, this particular document, which is going to be amended, isn't like fairly voluminous, we could always attach it to the order too. Reference it and then attach it to the order as an exhibit, so it would be recorded with the order as well.
Yeah, belt and suspenders, like,
It's something we've done in the past.
yeah, no, that's good.
That would be good.
Yes, because that would also end up addressing a couple of comments from Judith regarding the O&M plan. There were a couple of things that she wanted included too in her comments, so that certainly sounds acceptable.
Yeah, she didn't really go into that with me on the phone. She seemed more concerned with ensuring that you presented the test pit data.
Yes.
She seemed really wanting to review that. Like I said, she wasn't like worried or overly concerned like it was something like this big smoking gun. She just wanted it for her, to tighten up her files.
Certainly.
One thing that isn't necessarily within our purview, but I've heard it discussed on the project, maybe you can speak to it a little bit, is during construction, you're going to be hauling off a lot of material and disturbing large portions of the site. Can you speak to, or maybe it's somewhere on your plans, how you look to what your standard procedures will be to, keep dust control down, things like that? Will you be using water trucks periodically throughout the days as you're working, or?
Yeah, water trucks is good.
Jack, if that's for me, I'm not here.
Okay, I turned it off, I don't know why it came back on.
Hi, Dan Proctor, 1529 Mass Ave applicant. Yes, water trucks, obviously, one of the easiest, best features. Obviously, we own that house, which has town water, and so we have hose availability, for sprinklers, that type of thing. Calcium flakes are also a very good way to, keep dust down. Again, with the whole process that we had with selectmen and/or planning board, as well as conservation, what's going to happen throughout this whole project is literally, work our way into the hill, 2 weeks, put loom on it, seed it, work our way in, it's a pretty aggressive finish off a section at a time.
So you work
plan.
stabilized, work stabilized?
That's correct, exactly, pretty much constantly. Yep. Hay mulch,
Thank you.
but, yep.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is, the issues some of them that affect us with regard to dust is outside of the purview of our group. We are concerned about the dust that's going to cover the area, get into our wetlands and such. There are other issues with regard to particle size and things like that, but I believe that the other groups are handling that, and it's in terms of health issues. But all I was thinking was that in some of the readings I had done, they use trees as barriers to knock down dust, and I'm wondering where that wetland area is somewhat sensitive, that perhaps we ask for a row of trees or vegetation even in front of that to create a better filtering agent on the lower part of it, Mark? And where that 30-foot section would in fact protect that area that is concerning to us.
One thing I will say, just based on my own experience on large earthwork projects, is what Mr. Proctor indicated, the periodic use of water trucks and spraying down the area. Usually happens a few times during the day, 2 or 3 times a day.
Right.
During the hot, dry periods, and it's very, very effective at keeping the dust down.
Yeah. The readings that I did was that essentially, okay, there's the dust, you've got vehicles, you've got all sorts of other things that are creating it, aside from causing it to be damp. You've also got the issue of the weekends and high winds that can dress it. And I believe, were you putting some sort of salt barrier down there, Mark, or you're putting some sort of other material down to hold the dust down? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we use calcium flakes.
Calcium,
Yeah, and I mean, they slowly, dissipate and break down and keep the moisture on top
Yeah.
of the ground.
Yep. So the concerns become weekends, is it going to be maintained? There was also suggestions of, they actually have monitoring systems that monitor the amount of dust that's being generated during that period of time. And again, some of that gets outside of our purview.
If I may really quick, Jack, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I'm hearing multiple conversations, so it's hard to keep track on these minutes. You keep mentioning weekends, I'm not exactly sure.
Well, the weekends, in
what
terms of there's no
weekends
crew there, and there may not be watering going
are.
on
Okay,
continuously.
that makes sense, thank you.
Matt, as a condition of the Board of Selectmen permit that we were issued for earth removal, the work hours are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4?
4:30.
8 to 4:30, yes. So that's why there wouldn't be anyone on site on the weekends under most circumstances.
And I believe that just putting another barrier just to knock it down, let that be the sacrificial piece, might not be a bad idea to protect that area, depending on which way the wind is blowing, right?
With that, I think we still have some things that need to be updated on the plans based on DEP's comments this afternoon. So I think we're probably looking to continue to the next meeting till we get all those things addressed.
Is it possible to, I mean, I understand the comments that DEP did, but aren't those all like contingent? I believe, we were talking about the liability of the property, would pass on to future buyers, that type of thing.
Well, we needed updated soil descriptions to be addressed by DEP. We'd like to see that documentation included with the plans to be addressed. What else, Matt?
Well, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
She told me she's gonna review the order to ensure that we've addressed the future stormwater development aspect of it, and I already told her how we normally address those. She thought that was sufficient, but she'll review it anyway. The issue about anything done on future development would require re-review.
Yeah.
And that's already been common knowledge between all of us. She just wasn't sure that fact was spelled out enough.
Right, so she's locked it up anyway, essentially. In terms of until we get her the information, we can't satisfy her, right?
Well, if you guys would turn around and pass it, I'm being honest for everybody's benefit here. If you were to pass it now with any contingencies, depending on updated plans or anything like that, she would probably intervene.
Yeah, oh, she would.
She would intervene.
She locked it.
So, honestly, I would take care of the soil boring information first, the test pit information, and get that out of the way. The remainder of it can be addressed in our order, and she normally reviews the order anyway, and a lot of it is already common knowledge between all of us, and it's already been addressed. She just wanted to ensure it was addressed sufficiently on the document that we issue. It's the soil test pit data, to me, that's the linchpin here for continuing it. She hasn't had a chance to see it, so.
And our plans currently reflect the state Zone 2,
Yes,
but do not reflect Lunenburg Zone 3.
yes.
I think that should also be, if we're going to get a revision.
And that's on my draft plans that.
Yeah.
And the other things I heard tonight was a change to the stormwater management plan, and something about,
The O&M plan, you mean?
yeah, the O&M plan.
Yes, yeah, change the description of responsibilities, and they had, Judith had a couple of small things to add to that as well.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to any comments from the public.
Mark Resnickevich, 68 Townsend Harbor Road. What is a storm drain? I'm sorry, I don't, physically, what is that? Is that a graded hole in the ground where the water goes into, and can someone explain to me what a storm drain is, please? Or what these storm drains? I maintain the storm drain up the street from our property because there is runoff from the Stafford property and my property and the Smith's property. And I have to maintain that thing all the time. I volunteer to do that because otherwise it floods the bottom of my driveway where my septic system is, so I'm very leery of that. It clogs with leaves, snow, ice. I mean, I'm up there a lot to keep that drain running. It goes under the street and comes out a pipe on the other side of the street, something that was approved, I'm sure, years ago. But what are these storm drains, and how are they going to be maintained? Who's going to maintain them, and on what kind of basis? I mean, we're talking once a month, twice a month? That there's going to be a lot of leaves, and I don't know if these are susceptible to leaf blockage. So please, tell me what they are.
So I'm not 100% sure when the date was, but whenever the Stormwater Recharge Act went into effect, basically, we found out that we were allowing water to travel off of developed areas, especially paved areas, too quickly, and it was not getting treated, and it was ending up in rivers, brooks, what have you, untreated. So now every development in the state of Massachusetts has to go through stormwater recharge construction procedures.
Yeah, that's
Basically what it is, like we explained, I know you weren't there on Saturday, but basically the area is going to be leveled off. It's going to drop down into a basin, which is just going to be an earthen basin, hole in the ground that's going to be lined with grass. It's going to have a series of check dams that slow the water down, allows the water to go back into the ground rather than just go across the street into the wetlands. So basically, every development in the state of Massachusetts has some type of stormwater drainage. Some developments do them subsurface. In other words, that you can't see them, they're under the paved surfaces, they're infiltrator systems, that type of thing. Typically, shopping malls, that type of thing. They don't want to lose any space, so they'd rather go through the expense of putting them underground. Ultimately, the best ones, as far as from a maintenance standpoint, are the ones that you can see. So the open style is 10 times better because if it does get blocked with leaves, what have you, we can see it, we maintain it. The ones that are underneath, like Kyle was talking about with O&Ms, and you have a manhole cover that's supposed to be popped, the sky's the limit it's a bet how often those manholes get popped and looked at. So ultimately, the open ones are more practical and they're easily maintainable. So anytime you want to go to any site that's been built in the last 15 years, I can show you where the stormwaters are. If you look at the Lunenburg Public Library, if you're looking at the building, it's right there on the right. That was an open basin. We went the open basin route when we built that. I was on that committee. Basically, that's an open stormwater management area.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just, it's a really good point. That's why we talked a lot about the maintenance plan, which was passed down here, is it addresses your concerns, how often and who does it, and that's why we're talking about make it clear that the owner of that maintenance is clear in that plan. So that plan is extremely important to your point.
Are they like vernal pools? I mean, down the end of my driveway, there's a hole in the earth on both sides of our driveway, and they're vernal pools, I guess?
No, there are no vernal pools near the site.
Well, I mean, my driveway, there are. There's one on either side of my driveway.
vernal pool is a specific condition.
Well, they were dug by the builder of my house.
If I may, DEP did mention something about a potential vernal pool within the area, and I believe the potential vernal pool they cited was by your driveway.
Yeah, there's two of them.
However, well, they've only cited one of them, and none of them are certified. So until they're certified, we can only consider the potential one, okay? But that was addressed actually at the first meeting, that hydrologically, there's no impact to those vernal pools based on the stormwater scenario that they're proposing. So DEP is going to review all the stormwater impacts to see if they agree with that.
Yeah, what I was saying was, is the storm drain similar to a vernal pool?
No.
In the sense that it's a hole in the ground that water seeps into?
So, if you're looking at the plan, sir, on the western side of the plan, which is the bottom portion of the plan, you'll see a bunch of lines together, and what that is, that's a drainage ditch. That's the ditch that will hold all the stormwater runoff for the site. That entire thing, so there's going to be a ditch along the western edge of the site that controls all the stormwater for the site.
And there is a pretty decent scheduling of inspections and maintenance in their stormwater maintenance plan. So there is a routine, monthly, semi-annual, I mean, it's pretty regimented on this.
Okay, because I just needed to understand that based on what I have to do with my storm drain.
Yeah, right, but
And it's,
I think one of the things that, like
It's
Carl was
maintenance
trying to
heavy.
say is that that particular maintenance, once the maintenance manual is updated, it's actually going to be added to our permit, and it's going to be recorded permanently on their deed as a perpetual maintenance condition. So that maintenance schedule actually will be publicly, not only publicly available to anybody that views the deed, but anybody that buys the property automatically shows up when the title search is conducted. So it will be automatically flagged.
okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Hi, Katie Adams, Peninsula Drive. I'm here as a citizen. The selectmanship has sailed. Just one comment, the MS4 regulations in terms of potentially changing, there'll be a warrant article this spring, and if it passes, it will be available to the town ahead of schedule, because I think there was a consultant and that's expiring and whatnot, so those may change this spring. And I have one comment, but first I'll ask a question based on the previous speaker. Who certifies a vernal pool, just out of curiosity? Because the statement was it's not a certified vernal pool.
It's listed by the state as a potential vernal pool. Anybody that, you would have to get the criteria from the Endangered Species Program to certify a vernal pool, is the checklist. Anybody that can submit it, as long as they have all those items on the checklist on.
Like citizens do it?
Citizens can do it.
Okay, I was just curious.
I've had school classes that have done it, and what happens is you submit the data, you submit the recordings, if it's like peepers, for example. If there are peepers breeding there and you give them a recording, then you put the location on a map. People from the Endangered Species Program would go on the site, inspect the area in general, and see if they agree with your conclusions, and if they do, they would then issue a certification and a vernal pool certification number.
Okay,
That's
and,
how it works.
thank you. Then my comment on this project in regards to the town's Zone 3. I've just been piecing together meetings. I've been, at my own meetings, and then Conservation watched a planning board meeting, went to a planning board meeting. In terms of Zone 3, and the important piece of information that comes up is that 50% can be disturbed. At one meeting, and they are blending, the engineer discussed that it was intentionally set up to be subdivided so that the house lot could be removed from the commercial lot. If that is done at some point, then it circumvents the fact that that's supposed to be an undisturbed part of the Zone 3. And so when you look at the Zone 3 as we see it now, the untouched portion is the residential piece, which has previously been described as potentially being subdivided, in which case nearly 100% of Zone 3 would be affected for the piece that would be left behind. And I just wanted to point that out because I think it's important. Thank you.
Just to further discuss the Zone 3 a little bit more, that would be a zoning question if and when that parcel is subdivided off, not a Conservation Commission item. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Evening, I'm Dino D'Antonio, own 4 Townsend Harbor. I have a grave concern over this issue. I mean, it's my backyard. Wide open, can see everything, can feel everything. Wasn't even notified about this. They were even got a letter. And I thought, Massachusetts law, I was supposed to have a certified letter. I never received anything. I've owned that property for 2 years. Never got anything. So I have a real concern about this, moving forward. I mean, you know the amount of work we had to go through to get the barn down. I mean, who's...
To clarify for everyone, you own the property on the corner of Townsend Harbor.
Townsend Harbor, on the corner.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
And, the wetlands is a major issue. If anything happens over there, I got the Love Boat floating down the street. My house turns into a boat. I'm not very happy. And I have a lot of concerns about this runoff, and now you're putting more water while you're digging and keeping the dust down. I get all that. I play in the dirt all the time, too. We excavate, we do a lot of stuff, we build houses, but this is my backyard. I bought that property, I brought it up where it looks habitable at this point, and not to have a gravel pit in my backyard. So I have a little concern about this issue. I mean, you need gravel that bad. Keating and Powell are right down the street. $8 a ton, as much as you need. Why do you gotta put it in my backyard? And then, what's that gonna do to my property value? I just dumped $200,000 into that thing. I did that as an investment. Just as he's doing, he's making an investment. I'm all for making money, but not in my backyard. I mean, there's a lot of issues that were brought up and that, I'm not clear about, and I just have a little more concerns, and I'm talking to my engineer and our office and all that stuff, and they brought up a lot of good points. What happens if nobody maintains that ditch? Oh, I forgot to. You forgot to, then what happens? Oh, you get fined because the drainage ditch didn't get cleaned out? And my backyard's flooded? There's a major thing going on there that I'm a little wary of. There's a natural runoff now. You haven't had floods over there. It's been good. It's been real nice. The water's flowing good. It dries up during the winter. During the spring, it's watery, and, the animals are in there, the beavers and all that stuff, but it is what it is. It's wetlands. I get it. But, I'm just a little concerned of this. You're sitting out in the back having a barbecue, and the wind's blowing on a Saturday afternoon. What about all that dust? I'm sitting out there getting covered in dust in my backyard. I mean, come on, guys. It's really...
I understand your concern.
It's a major
I think this is the first meeting you've been to, sir?
Yeah, because I didn't get the letter for the other meeting.
So I do invite you, our meetings are audio recorded and video recorded, and this is I believe, our third hearing on this property, so I do invite you to listen to those meetings as well.
I will.
We've addressed several of those issues and your concerns, and we've tried to address some of those tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of them brought up, and they were well,
I have them on my list.
well addressed.
So.
I will say personally, from review of the plans, I think the engineer's done a very good job engineering the site I think they have a redundant system to, control erosion and stormwater on the site.
I'm not saying it's not a bad system. I'm not saying it's not a good system. It's just a precaution that I'm concerned about. It looks good on paper, but when you're on site, it becomes a different issue. And, I brought this point up last meeting, they did test holes. Great. What happens if you hit ledge? Oh, we gotta put the 20-ton hammer on the end of the excavator. Oh, that didn't work. Let's drill holes and start blasting. Oh, what happened to my fieldstone foundation? It's like, these are concerns that I have. Yeah, we did a test hole here, we did a test hole there. Oh, I hit ledge here. It happens.
Well, I think if something like that happened, it would, because their operations would change so drastically, they'd have to come back for a field change.
I thought once the permit was issued, it was issued, and it's unforeseen site work that has to be taken care of.
That's incorrect. We can require them to come back and change.
It would require them to come back?
Yep.
All right, because I've never had to have that before, and I just did one in Bolton, at the Shoba Valley.
I turned it off.
And that wasn't easy, but they didn't require us to come back because we ran into ledge. They said, no, it's fine, you're okay, just keep going.
Well, and you must have not triggered a threshold. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done work with Bolton Concom, and they're
Yeah.
pretty stringent, so
Yeah.
they would have made you come
Yeah,
back.
he's fabulous, they really do a good job, it just, we ran into a major ledge issue that wasn't near the test holes. And, it happens, but I have these concerns.
The applicant performed some test holes on the site. Maybe you can give us a little insight into the depth that you took the holes and to maybe alleviate some of your abutters' concerns.
So basically, here's the abutters list that all the people were notified. I don't know why you didn't receive it, but you're on the list, and we had the green cards that were returned, so someone answered for it. But we dug 16-foot test holes everywhere, right here. 4 Townsend Harbor Road.
So your 16-foot test
So we dug
holes?
16-foot test holes on the top side of the hill. Down below, we basically just went till we hit water, which was less, obviously, as we get closer to the wetlands, but we did not hit any ledge on the property.
So your 16-foot test holes would extend from the portion that's going to be cut down 20 feet, so there might be a 4-foot zone that there's only a small 4-foot zone that you have any potential to
The bottom line, we're not in the rock business. If we hit ledge, we'd stop. I mean, it's not cost effective to hammer, drill, blast, at this point, as far as in the earth removal process.
Well, you just know when you're building a house.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that's just my concerns, and issues
Understood.
before the permits get issued and stuff,
That's why we open this up to public comments, so we can hear them.
All right, well, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the commission's clarification regarding the abutter notification, he is on my list of having been notified, and the fact that he's here renders that particular issue now moot, so.
Hi, Mark Resnickevich, 68 Townsend Harbor. I believe at one of the meetings, it was already ruled upon that there would be no blasting. Am I correct? Okay, so that helps answer his question.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to continue until March 4th with the applicant's permission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you on March 4th.
Mr. Chairman, I won't be here on March 4th.
Okay.
Start without me.
Gotta get that phone under control.
There's a thing I stick it in my pocket, and it's
And then you hit
shutting
the
down.
button, yeah.
And it senses something and reverses it back. Never did that before until I won an upgrade. So Bob, where you going?
Hopefully someone's on it.
So we're going to open our next hearing. We're going to end up continuing this. This is for the DPW culverts. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Section 239 of Lunenburg General Bylaw, DPW has filed a notice of intent for replacement of culverts at Sunset Lane and Northfield Road.
Can't hear you with all the...
I'll open it again when it gets quiet.
Sorry.
Yep. Good night. So the folks in the audience, so we can hear me, I'm going to read this again. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Section 239 of the Lunenburg General Bylaw, the Wetland Bylaw, DPW has filed a notice of intent for replacement of culverts at Sunset Lane and Northfield Road. The applicant is not here. They're still coordinating with the engineer to get some issues resolved. So we're gonna, I'll accept a motion to continue.
I move we continue this until March 4th.
Motion?
Second?
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public meeting on a notice of intent by Nancy Bell for replacement of an existing retaining wall at 51 Fire Road 19. The applicant's not here. We'll continue this until March 4th.
Just so the commission knows, Mrs. Bell reached out to me, so I'm gonna have her come in and see me next week.
Okay.
What was the hard deadline we gave her?
March 4th.
Okay. Thank you.
Someone want to make that a motion for continuance to the 4th?
So, second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to enforcement. First, the new enforcement on the agenda this week is 179, 183 Island Road.
Can I get it now?
Yes.
That's why I'm here. Okay. Good evening. I'm Joan Pease from 11 Winter Green Court, and I'm here tonight in my capacity as an officer for the Hickory Hill Landowners, Inc. Corporation. This property abuts Hickory Hills Lake. I've brought with me, and I will share, I only brought one copy of each, but I will share with the commission. I'm sure they can make copies. The quick claim deed for the O'Brien's property located at 183 Island Road. The quick claim deed clearly states that the boundary of their property ends at a location of 1 foot above the high water mark. Thus, all the land from 1 foot above the high water mark down to the lake does not belong to them. It belongs to Hickory Hills landowners. And in addition, the lake bottom does not belong to them. It belongs to Hickory Hills landowners. The second document I have for you is the previous deed to this property that was conveyed to the first deed that I'm going to give you, and I'll give them copies to the top.
Thank you.
If you look at the top document, on the second page of the top document, highlighted in yellow, it refers to the second document as being in effect and governing this property and the lake. And the second document has many restrictions that govern what can be done on lakefront property. Recently, we were notified by another resident who lives at Hickory Hills Lake that this 183 was filling in the lake with both sand and topsoil. In addition to that, they have cut down all of the trees, removed all of the stumps, and taken out all of the brush that abuts the lake on that strip of property in front of the waterfront. Hickory Hills had no knowledge that the O'Briens were doing this. We were not notified at any time until another resident informed us. Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc. does not condone in any way the filling in of the lake and considers it a very serious offense. Removal of all of the vegetation, both trees, stumps, and a variety of natural shrubs from the shoreline places the area in danger of erosion and increases the amount of nutrient-loaded runoff entering the lake, which then fuels algae blooms and weeds, as you know. The corporation is concerned about these activities and the detrimental environmental consequences of them. We are requesting that the LCC take actions which will require remediation of the area, including removal of all of the sand and topsoil added to the lake bottom during our drawdown, and planting of native vegetation, both trees and shrubs, along the shore to prevent erosion and reduce the nutrient runoff from entering the lake. I'm done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, well, the pictures that were made available by
Excuse me,
the...
guys, before we go on.
Okay.
The landowner is here. Mr. O'Brien is here.
Do you want to come on?
Do you want to come up? No, not you, sir, the owner.
Everybody will get their turn.
Peter Cowley, 72 Peninsula, also on the board for Hickory Hills Association. I'm looking also at the original deed, which states that no building or other structure or any part thereof can be built closer than 50 feet to the front line of the property, within 50 feet of the water. So I certainly haven't taken any measurements, but I just wanted to point that out too, that the structure itself is in question as far as I'm looking at it.
Well, we can tell you that all the structures built on the property are greater than 50 feet from the edge of the high water mark as noted on his engineering plans. And that was verified in the field.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out. I stand corrected.
It's an excellent point. It's something that the commission did consider.
I sent for the pictures. Yeah, I have the pictures, yeah. He's right.
Matt, do you want to bring us up to speed on what?
Yeah, there's the...
I brought this up at the last meeting.
Right.
Essentially, it was outlined like Mrs. Peace was talking about. There was the vegetation that was removed. As you're looking at the water on the left-hand side, there were areas that we didn't want him to remove stuff. We had allowed for...
This is the old drawing. It's a wall.
We had allowed for one pine tree to be removed under his order of conditions and not stumped. The pine tree and other trees were removed and stumped.
Yep.
There was sand going into the lake bed. There was a pile of sand waiting. I had the pile of sand removed. At this point, that's it. We issued the enforcement order, and I asked Mr. O'Brien to show up at the meeting.
Mr. O'Brien, why don't you come up to the microphone? Thanks, sir.
And I'd like to add that as far as adding to the property, if for anything, I would be wanting to take out of the lake rather than put into the lake. We added nothing to the lake. In fact, I had gone down to see Matt a couple of times about, I understood that we could go into the lake and muck out the bottom, the weeds, the leaves, a couple of tires, stuff like that, telephone poles, stuff that drifted in down Mulpus Brook. We pretty much scraped out all the debris that was in there and the inorganic matter, if you would. Got it out. There was some brush that was in front on the left-hand side going down to the water's edge that I was told that I could take that out. Was there confusion as to what taking it out meant? Probably about 150 square feet, I would gather, of brush. And we took that out and we scraped out the river bottom or the brook bottom, the lake bottom, whatever you have. We added nothing to the water. I did bring some sand in and I wanted to top it down on the bottom where that area we cleaned out. Matt came down, saw it, and asked me to remove it immediately, which we did. There's probably a couple, 2-3 inches left there that we couldn't get up, and we'll grind that all in with the topsoil, and when we plant the grass, I plan on loaming and seeding the area this spring. We didn't get to it in the fall, we just kind of ran out of weather. We got hit early with the weather. For the most part, the property is just about done. We have final grading is done. Driveway's cut, we didn't get that in because of the weather. Driveway should be going down soon as we get the spring, and then I got my landscaper coming in to loam and seed and dress the place out. We tried to keep to the letter of the order that you gave me. I think we did pretty good with it. I don't know where the confusion came in, where we were ripping stumps out and where we were adding to the lake. I don't know where that came from, because that is not what happened. Where did you get that information?
Pictures that were sent to the Board of Directors.
Do you have
Excuse me,
pictures of
excuse me,
before and
Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah.
You have to address your questions directly to the chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
You can't address the residents directly.
I got, okay.
The other thing is, just to clarify, the stump removal, you told me you removed the stumps, because when I asked you, what happened to the stump that you weren't supposed to remove?
No,
The
no,
answer
no,
to me in the
that's-
office was, I removed it.
No, the tree that we took down, that stump is still there. We didn't take that out.
Okay, so I'm confused, because I asked you directly at my office, what happened to the stump you were supposed to grind to ground level? And your response to me was, no, we removed it.
No, I ground those stumps, they're still there. I ground 2 stumps, and we left 1 stump on the water. Well, whatever, I didn't say we pull out some, I
I'm
pulled out the
recommending that
brush.
we should go see the property at this point then.
Yeah.
I think that makes
Happy to hear you
sense.
say that, thank you.
Yeah.
I recommend we go see it sometimes when there's no snow cover on the ground.
I agree.
Snow's gone now.
Mr. Chairman, I definitely think we need to go down there, but the one thing that seems to be a little fuzzy, it's always hard to tell, is where the shoreline was and where it's supposed to be. So how could we reestablish where the shoreline was when we approved the order of conditions?
Well, we have an engineered plan that actually the shoreline was shot and located, so, I mean, we can take the plan and compare it.
We get it staked,
Right.
In looking at it, I don't think the actual shoreline itself has been altered. There's been work done in the lake bed, but the actual shoreline, as far as being relocated, dug, expanded, moved back, filled in, I don't think that that's been done, but...
So if we could see, if we could get some stakes to see where the points of the shoreline were, then we can see what was done on the shoreline versus in the lake, and, you know, as a...
Exactly, so the engine, I mean, we could have Ducharme and Dillis go back out and stake...
Oh, time out. I'm in deep with him already, please. I don't need, we can back tape from where the house is now, and I can put the stakes back. In fact, the hay wattle is right down where the shoreline is. In fact, it's probably about 5 feet off of the shoreline right now.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm not real comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. Okay, Jack.
We have
Bob.
high-resolution pictures that I shared with, I sent
They're on the
one-
cloud.
And I sent one of them over today. Yeah, they were taken approximately 5 years ago. We flew a plane around the lake, took a whole pile of pictures. We can very easily go down and figure out where the shoreline was based on the pictures. Don't spend any money.
Thank you.
So we can do that pretty easily, and we'll be able to ascertain. You know, we had pictures from the previous visit with regard to where the stumps were. We had those pictures and those that I sent to you, Matt, as well.
And we can double check that with field measurements from the house. I think that's a good suggestion. That's an easy way to verify, pulling cross ties from the house.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien...
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done. Close enough, go ahead.
You know, Matt showed us pictures of the area down by the lake, and it looked like, you know, it had been scraped down to soil all the way across. And I remember when we did the site visit, that entire area was covered with native vegetation.
Yes.
And I hear you say now you're going to seed and loam it, so in effect, what you're doing or proposing doing or what you've done is you're taking all the native vegetation that was there and you're replacing it with lawn. And that, it's in the 30-foot no disturbance zone, so that's a problem. It's a violation.
And that would go, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, that would go a foot back from the high water mark to the start of their property. Otherwise, it's a trespassing issue, I guess, is that what we're hearing?
What's that?
Well, okay, they're saying the high water mark, and the way the association claims ownership is that you take a foot up and you go back into it. So now you're talking about changing their property up to whatever that height is, the 1 foot inland. So,
Well, I think a
That's a
site,
dip- that-
a site visit
Yeah.
with the engineered plan, a careful site visit will help illuminate some of these issues, because we seem to be getting conflicting information from the applicant as well as in the complaint, so I think a site visit's warranted to verify the state of what's there and what needs to be remediated, if that's necessary.
and a trespass issue on our regard, we've had where people have placed a wall about a foot, 2 feet further into the lake, and that became a trespass issue as well. And that was resolved because we called it, but anything happening above that really becomes a function of, if it's outside of our wetland protection and our own ordinances, is an issue with the association.
Well, and I specifically remember this hearing where we had areas of the site that were not to be disturbed.
Yes.
So I will be able to, I think also, it would behoove us to go back in the minutes and refresh our memories on those hearings to see if some of those areas were captured within the minutes as well as the approved plan.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I looked at the terms and conditions that were posted. Is there a separate addendum, Matt?
For?
The order of conditions, was there an addendum that called out other pieces? Maybe I missed it in the original document, but...
I'm not sure what you're asking me,
Okay,
Jack.
the order of conditions that were filed, right?
Yep.
Okay, where we all signed. I didn't see a whole pile of terms and conditions in that report. Is there an addendum that sits outside of it and that wasn't included?
No, there's an
Yeah, it's
additional
all-
condition section that's in the order.
Yeah, I just didn't see it, but maybe I'm blind, which is a good chance of that.
It's actually on the cloud. Did you look on the cloud?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Take a look at it again, because
If you could make it available, just separately maybe, so the rest of us can see it.
Mrs. Pizziata, come up to the microphone.
Joan Pease, 11 Green Court. Would it be possible for the Conservation Commission to notify Hickory Hills landowners officially when they're doing the site visit so that board members might also be present?
Well, I think we could schedule it right now. The applicant, or the landowners here, I anticipate we do a site visit on February 29th. We have one visit scheduled for 9 a.m. I assume we could probably get there by 9:30 a.m.
I cannot make the 29th, I'll be out of town. We could do it the Saturday.
This coming Saturday, which would be
22nd.
the 22nd. Would conservation members be available this Saturday?
I believe so.
I'd be available.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'd be.
Yeah. So this Saturday at 9 a.m.?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, we had an incident in the past where we've had, the Conservation Commission was invited to step onto the property, and when there were people who were not part of this conservation joined them, the owner was very upset that there were other members who they had not invited onto the property. So I believe that the safe bet would be for you, the owner, to say, yes, you're allowed to invite in some other people, or you really simply don't want them in, being, with the neighbors and stuff. So, Mr. O'Brien, maybe if it's
9
acceptable
a.m.
to
on the
you,
22nd.
the other members would be allowed to.
Well, I
the property
suppose the
again?
two members that are here this evening are more than welcome to come. I don't know who else they would.
Okay.
I don't know anybody else. I would think this would be sufficient.
Sure. Would that be, yeah? So with your permission, then, we would invite those
There
people.
might be one other member, Doug Waters, who is chairman of the Land Committee for the Hickory Hills Corporation.
Mr. O'Brien, would that be acceptable if Mr. Roberts also
That's
attends?
acceptable. yeah.
Thank you. Very good. Then, I'll accept a motion that we have a site walk on February 22nd at 9 a.m.
Well, just before we close it out, or go ahead, I guess you can.
No, go ahead.
So you can vote on that. So exactly what is the violation?
So the purported violation is that you removed and stumped trees, and you'll be able to demonstrate quite easily that the stumps were left in place. That you filled within the lake bed, and that sand has been removed.
Well, I didn't fill in anything, and the sand never went into the lake bed. It was dumped on my property prior to going in or along that edge of where the land is, and that's been removed, so nothing ever went into the lake bed.
We're going to verify that the shoreline as documented on the engineered plan hasn't been modified.
The shoreline has not been modified.
Yep. We're also going to, you indicated that there was approximately 150 square feet of area within the lake bed that you cleared some brush, so you could...
But, you know, let me retract that. I'm not even sure if that was within the lake area.
Okay.
It's unclear to me. In fact, your pictures might help that out.
Yeah, we have the old ones, and we have some newer ones when we went out and visited your site.
Yeah, because I think most of that was right on the edge of the, right there on the edge there.
Yeah, I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
And so we have pictures of other previously existing trees, and we want to just confirm that those were a part of the plan to come down.
And we also have the engineered plans that showed areas within the 30-foot no-touch zone that were not to be disturbed, so we can verify that they've remained intact. That's all.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I was informed that with the drawdown, it was advantageous to us to go in there and do our part to clean that bottom. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And that's what my intent is, and still is. Filling it in is not my intent. If anything, if I could bring the water closer to the house and have a deeper water, because as it is at high water, I believe I got about 4 feet of water to wade in. Deeper water would be nice. Filling it in is not my agenda by any means.
Understood.
So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the site walks, one, to address the complaint we have and verify that you're doing it as we agreed that you do it. That's all.
Okay, good.
Good.
All right.
So, I'll accept the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, which one? And there was communications from one of the residents, something, Matt, about a dock location?
Well, I forwarded you guys the email.
Yeah, I didn't totally understand that dock location issue. And the old pictures that we have from 4 or 5 years ago clearly show where dock was. I have no idea where is the plan beyond that. There was actually that piece of...
Actually, the abutters were talking about their dock and their access to the lake.
Okay, excuse me.
That their contention was the modifications that were made by Mr. O'Brien would inhibit their access, because pictures they sent me show that there was a lot of topsoil loam spread around.
Okay.
And that's something we'd have to, I mean, the pictures were taken from their angle, so, while I can see what they're concerned about, I can't specifically come up with some type of a valid conclusion unless I was on the site. That's why I recommended a site visit. We all need to see this.
That's great.
Because it's all going to be, back and forth. You did this, no, I didn't. Well, you did this, no, I didn't. So.
Let's go check.
By the way, Jack, you were right. For some reason, the additional conditions section didn't make this, but there is an additional condition section.
Yeah, that's going nuts. I'm saying, where is it? Should be.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was on there because I must have put in a different file.
Okay.
So it has the state boilerplate, but not the local boilerplate.
Right. That's what I was looking for. I said, did I get it? But there was mention of an addendum in the document, so I said, maybe it's sitting some other place and just didn't find it. Okay.
So I'll accept the motion that we go on a site walk on February 22nd at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Are we going to continue the enforcement hearing at the next meeting or at a later date, or?
Why don't we keep the enforcement on the agenda until the next meeting. If the sidewalk reveals that we don't need to take any further action, we can close it at that time. All in favor?
Aye. Who seconded it?
I did.
Carl did. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
New business.
Hey, Carl, you remember who got in trouble? Phyllis.
Sidewalk for Gilchrist Street property for trail access.
I'm gonna be meeting with Gary Goldrup, actually. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was thinking of something else. The trail access, I haven't gotten firm dates yet for an appointment for the site walk on that. On the other one with Gary Goldrup, on the stewardship plans, I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow to go over firm scheduling with him for when he can appear at the meeting to go over the plans with us. Those draft plans that he's submitting actually are posted on the cloud, so.
The approval of funds for tax bill inserts, didn't we already approve that?
Yeah, I forgot to take that off the agenda, that's all. Sorry.
Can I go back to Gary Goldberg for a second?
Yes.
The plan for Chase Road, I forget the name of that property. The Chase Road property. I remember Richard saying at a prior meeting that Gary forgot to include, or wasn't asked to include, the parcel that directly abuts Northfield Road.
There would be access.
That would be the access to the property, and also, we were talking about possibly putting the landing zone there. You know, because maybe then the landing zone could turn into a parking lot. So, I would just note that, Matt, that, that's the Reno property. The Reno property, it did not include the little parcel, right next to Northfield Road that abuts the pond.
Yep. I got it.
And I think it should, since our thought was, you know, that's where, if there was to be cutting there, the landing zone would go there.
Yep, no, I got it down.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
And stay with that particular piece in the stewardship plan, the Cowdery. I had a chance to review the Cowdery analysis. There's no plan there, I mean, in terms of us taking any action, but it's Gary's overview. Given the fact that, you know, we had quite a pushback from the community in terms of what we did with Little Town, we addressed this with, you know, let it sit for a little while and wait till the spring and take everybody out and let them show Little Town Forest and show them how well it's recovered and it's so beautiful right now. That we dance on that one really lightly and we make it clear to people this is just pre-planning and something that we would do normally versus, because as soon as this gets out there, there are hundreds and hundreds of people that use that Cowdery all the time.
Well, just for clarification, the Cowdery plan was done like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What's being done now is it's being amended so that it's being changed to a bird habitat.
Bird habitat, right. But there are some interesting pieces of data in terms of 20 and 35% and things like that. And let's make it clear, we're not doing anything on it, we're just analyzing it.
My understanding was Gary was going to explain the plan to us, and then the plan after that was to schedule public meetings on all these parcels.
Right.
That was what my understanding was, so.
And I'm saying, why don't we wait till the spring before we, nothing imminent that has to happen right away, but let's give the public a chance to see the town forest, Little Town Forest first.
Well, I don't think we're gonna repeat the process that we had with Rob's Hill. So I think taking it slowly is smart.
Yeah.
Revisions of land use regulations?
I just wanted to confirm with the commission that that's going to be for our second March meeting, so it would be televised. So regarding hunting, the hunting portion, apparently there is an environmental police officer that actually may show up to the regulations portion just to go over state hunting regulations with us. If he's supposed to be making it, he's supposed to confirm with me, and if he makes it, it will give you guys a chance to do Q&A with him on what the laws are.
That's fantastic. Old business, Trails Grant, updates.
No updates today.
Any updates on land acquisition at Saliba?
Have you already through open space and all that stuff?
No, in fact, I sent off an email to Brandon about our, town parcels, and saying I wanted to put on the next agenda, and shortly after our last meeting, and I had not heard back from him, so, every once in a while, we schedule an open space meeting, and it hasn't happened lately, and I don't know when it'll happen again.
Yeah, I guess my concern with the sour piece on Northfield Road is it'd be good to get an update from the town manager, maybe, through Matt, maybe.
Yeah.
We can talk about it when he gets back, but,
Okay.
I know the deadline on that was pretty tight, so I'd like to hear what's going on with it.
Open meeting law resolution, has everyone completed their resolution? We know Katie has. I'm still delinquent.
I haven't done it yet.
So it looks like at least 4 of us have to do it. I don't know if Rich has completed his resolution yet either, so maybe we can give ourselves a deadline by the March 4th meeting to try and get it done and the form turned in.
I know the topic came up at the last selectmen's meeting. Katie asked for an update on where we were on,
Nice of her to check in on this.
addressing the open meeting law violations.
Yep.
There is one thing, after listening to the tape, when Matt's back, I want to,
Yes.
because the training was clearly a requirement of the ruling, but the other thing that wasn't so clear, that I know you talked about it at the last meeting, but it was a recommendation, not a requirement, but a recommendation that the minutes of May 29th be rewritten.
And Matt,
I haven't had a chance to write them yet.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Matt at the last meeting said that he was working on that.
Okay, yeah, all I heard in the tape was, to revisit or review, and so.
And
So it's
but
just-
Matt did say at the last meeting that he was working on that, and
Piece it together.
Okay, great.
but he had to
I'll
listen.
have them ready for the next meeting. I just wanted, the other minutes we had, because I missed a portion of the meeting, I couldn't take down my usual notes that they do on the computer, so I had to listen to everything, and it's time to.
Yeah, I wasn't rushing. When I listened to the tape, it sounded like they were just going to be like reread. I want to make sure we're all clear on that.
Good.
Just
Go
real
ahead,
quick,
Ken.
while you were out of the room, can you check with either Adam or the town manager and get an update on the Salba thing for us for the next meeting? Just where we're at with that.
Saliba, yeah.
Saliba, Northfield Road, land acquisition. Because I know there was some time deadline that, it'd just be good to know where we're at with that. Thank you.
Well, in addition, we can't actually get a check until our open space plan has been accepted. And, the open space committee's been working on, mostly Brandon, have been working on addressing, they sent back this laundry list of comments.
So that needs to get dealt with before.
And, but I'm assuming that Brandon's on that, because he's on top of everything, so.
Hopefully. He is.
Good. We don't have any certificates of compliance this week. Extension permits.
I have the one from the last meeting. I sent you guys the documents you wanted me to send you so you could review.
That was for Brockman's Pond.
Yep.
Herring's Pond, whatever it is.
Damn, I missed that. When did they go out, Matt? I got to look for them.
Yeah, he sent
What,
that.
the document? I emailed that a while ago.
Yeah, it was.
Like a week and
Yeah.
a half ago.
That's the problem.
Okay, so I know I'm not crazy. I know I put it in there.
February 12th.
Thank you.
So this is for management of Parents Pond, with herbicide treatment and hydro raking and the whole shebang. Have folks had a chance to review the original, order?
Oh, okay, I did get that and review it, yes. I thought there was some other questions about changing chemicals or something.
I thought it was just they wanted us to extend the permit.
Yeah.
They do, but because it's chemical treatment, at the last meeting, I thought it makes sense if people hadn't reviewed the original order, that before we extend it, we look at the original, review the original order. If everyone's had a chance, I'm more than willing to entertain an extension.
I would make that a motion that we extend the order conditions or extension permit for Rothman's property.
For how long?
We can do it for 3 years, right?
Yeah, I have this one for 3 years.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. The document I'm looking at is the notice of intent, right?
Right, so we're gonna extend the notice of intent.
Are the orders,
What was asked to be reviewed.
where's the order of conditions? Because that's the important document in my mind.
What I was asked was to put up the notice of intent because they had all the proposals that was approved.
Yeah, no, and that's good, and I looked at it, and it's what it is, but... But it seemed like giving an extent, we're essentially giving the same conditions that they were before, right?
Yeah, there's nothing that's been changed. They did ask about amending it to do a different chemical, and they asked for it as a field change, and we said, no, we applied, and they just dropped the issue.
So there are no, I don't know my glasses, I can't read the word, but I don't see anything, it looks like, there's no special conditions or reporting or testing or anything?
No, this is a small pond. It's just basically like a once-a-year treatment for emergent weeds.
I guess I'm just concerned, this is a part of the stream, right, the Mulpus stream, so this
Correct.
water goes out, goes down somewhere
Mulpus
else.
Brook.
So whatever goes in there goes downstream, and it ends up everywhere, anywhere, wherever, and,
All run.
you know, we're fairly rigorous on other, on what testing
That's
and
the whole reason I
sampling
had
we
the
need to
order
do
sent-
elsewhere, and I...
Sent back around.
It
Well,
just
I
says
would point
notice
out
of
the
intent.
difference is that this is a small private pond that they do once a year. It's not a full-blown lake management plan. So I'd be cautious about treating it like it was Lake Shirley or Hickory Hills.
Yeah, I think there's a huge distance between no order and, you know, no requirements and Lake Shirley. But this is a stream that the water, it's not like a privately owned pond and the water stays on the property and the chemicals stay on the property.
Right.
If this is a stream that goes downstream, and
What's the chemical they're using, Matt?
Florida?
I think they're using just about everything. They're using the
No, not Florida.
Dicquat, what's the more active one that Hickory Hills is looking at?
Zona.
Florida.
But I don't think it's Florida.
Zona is what Hickory Hills is looking at.
Right. That's more for the family. I think they were looking, something that's gonna kill everything. So I don't know.
I thought they were using that here.
No.
No? Maybe not.
I'm looking at too many of them lately.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
To control emergent and floating leaf plants, we recommend treatment with Aqua Pro, which is glyphosate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it basically is. It's the only
Yeah.
one I've seen. I'm looking for any other chemicals.
What's the chemical, Tom?
Glyphosate.
I mean, this was done and approved under the GEIR as far as its standards go.
I don't have any trouble granting an extension.
Man, who's doing the application? Do they say?
Solitude.
Solitude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're using Rodeo.
Rodeo, yeah.
Rodeo, what's the,
Yeah.
what's the, chem-
Glyphosate.
Yeah, Rodeo or Aqua Pro, that's black phosphate, that's what they're using.
so that's the only chemical they're using? Or that's in the order?
They also have, in the application, they talk about reward and copper sulfate.
Yeah, that was part of their alternative
Yep.
analysis.
Yeah, and reward, what's the active
Dicot.
chemical in reward? It is dicot?
Yep.
Heck what, yeah, it did. Copper sulfate, that hangs around for quite a while, doesn't it, Bob? Is that the one that gets in?
Forever.
Yeah,
That's the alpha treatment.
Yep.
yeah.
The initial order, basically their management recommendation was to do an initial hydro raking followed by chemical treatment to keep anything from coming back, and that's what apparently they did, so.
Do we know if they do that every year? Do they treat that every year?
They do it every year.
Do we get notified? Is that
Yes.
in the order? That they have to
Yeah.
notify us prior?
It's not in the order, but Solitude does it anyway.
As a courtesy?
Yeah. Well, they do it because they wind up having to get a permit from DEP. You have to get every time you do the application, you have to get a permit, that's the law. So we usually get copied when they do the permit applications.
I don't know, it seems to me like we should at least have something in the order that keeps us informed of what they're putting in and how much and when and, you know, what they're doing. And
So why don't we extend the order of conditions as
Well, if we
amendment?
extend the permit, I can turn around and require it anyway, under the order of conditions.
Great, yeah, I think there's to be just a little bit more than, yeah, go do what you want to do and come back in 10 years.
Sure.
I mean, they can, I mean, it doesn't have to be as elaborate report.
Oh, hell no.
Because it's not that type of treatment.
No,
But we can ask them to do a yearly report, a yearly summary report that we can review that. I don't
Yeah,
think
just
I
what they
should-
put in, how much they put in, when they put it in.
I mean, it's not a large impoundment, a few acres.
Yeah, right, so it's not, it shouldn't
They're
be a
gonna
big
be out there
deal.
anyway, so they can write the report just as easily.
Great, yeah, I absolutely would support.
That's reasonable.
So I move we grant an extension permit for 3 years, and when Matt writes up the order, the extension, he adds to the order of conditions that they will notify him in 7 days in advance of the application, and that they will submit an annual report of activities.
Second, thank you.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye.
I'll send that out as a separate thing attached to the extension permit.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from February 5th?
Yes.
Do we have another extension permit?
Oh, yeah, 121 Peninsula Drive.
There's some documentation I'm waiting for. No, that's not
Okay.
gonna continue that.
I move we approve the most recent version of the February 5th minutes.
That revision too?
That was a lot.
Sorry about the crossword puzzles, it's just I got some productive input, so I'll make sure it's done.
Okay.
It's good. I would like to congratulate our administrator for getting it done so quickly.
Motion, did someone second?
Yes, I.
All in favor? Aye. Committee reports, any updates?
There is one thing I wanted to update the commission on as far as the O&L stuff, open meeting law.
Yeah.
I know that like one of you sent your certification directly to Adam. Please don't do that. Send your certifications to me. I will
Okay.
send them to Adam. I need a central file to make sure that that's done. The only way I can do that is if you're sending them to me, send it to him. Katie, I sent yours to me, so.
And our goal, while you stepped out for a moment, our goal is to get all of our resolutions completed by the March 4th meeting.
And, I'm sorry, Matt, where do I find that certificate?
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Agent report. What else do you got, Matt? Mm-hmm.
Let me just check the agenda. Should I have my agenda on?
Of course.
Have mine.
The online permit application is now visible to the public. I'm going to be advising the engineering community about it and speaking to them individually about how it works. Open space and trailer use, yeah, I forgot to take winter trails off. I'll make sure that that's on the next one. Hickory Hills is going to be at our next meeting as an appointment. They're going to go over their order conditions requires them to go over their treatment strategy every year in the spring before they start. So they're going to come back to us at the March meeting and go over their proposed treatment strategies for the year. They've also started raising the water levels, and they anticipate there'll be no problem meeting the required deadlines in the order to fill the lake back up.
Okay.
They're considering a lot of different treatment options as far as their chemical treatment. And that's one of the main reasons why they have to come back to, they also have to talk to us about their chemical treatments and what they want to use. They're actually looking at an ambitious plan to chemically treat fan water on a whole lake basis.
Right.
Wow. And the amount of money is like monumental.
It's significant. We're having, if I could add to that, we hired a consultant to come in and look at Hickory and Little Hickory and help us with our management plan. One of the things that came back was that if we want to go ahead and treat for fan water, we fully understand that we will never completely eradicate it, but we can knock it down significantly. And we know we're going to, every few years or so, have to go back and do another major treatment. To that, we've had one large shareholders meeting in the high school to go over some of the plans. We have another one this Saturday to present the final report from the consultants, as well as talking about funding some real, for us, that's in the neighborhood of $300,000. That's a lot for us. And what does that mean? How can we fund that? And that will be coming up. We'll also have this Saturday, the following week, we have a shareholders meeting to have the approval done, and say, yeah, we sign up for that. And so they're trying to move on it. And maybe we can slow the whole thing down.
Honestly, guys, as much as I get the heebie-jeebies with chemicals, and we got to approach this with our usual caution, because it is going to be a lake-wide treatment. I did tour that lake in a boat with John Fortune, who has that luxury of having a boat that has the radar on the bottom where you could see the weeds, the density, the height. It was a pretty cool device he had on the boat. It was built into the boat, which is very cool. But it was readily apparent just by my own visual observation and what's there and what they've been doing is that the limited dash, the suction harvesting, is not effective. All it's doing is leaving more room for more weeds to settle in.
Right, we're losing. It's exponentially growing, as Joan Pease has shown now.
Yep.
It's a losing battle. I mean, you're talking, what, about $500,000?
Hopefully we're about 300, but that's the first pass. And it's a kind of a little bit of a crapshoot too, because if we get too much rain, it has to sit in that lake for almost 2 months.
Sure.
And if we get too much rain, it's going to reduce the effectiveness. But I don't want to speak to that because I haven't heard the consultant's full report, and I'm sure John will come in and do a great job bringing us up to date on that as well.
Hope it'll be Paul.
The people watching on TV, crapshoot is a technical term.
Matt, is there any update on LSIC?
Nothing yet.
Because weren't we supposed to get the annual report in December and?
I did get the annual report. I believe it's on the cloud. It's been on the cloud for a while.
Oh, okay. We'll go look for it. Is it in the Lakes session, or where is it?
Should be in the lake section. I remember going over it with Rich a while ago before he went away.
Okay, good.
I'll look for it. If it's not there, I'll put it up.
I can look,
Any updates on hunting signage, Matt?
No, we're gonna wait for the spring for that.
Yep.
Any updates on the ATV signs?
I'm supposed to, No, they haven't sent me the quote yet, I gotta hope them to send me the quote.
Ooh, if I can jump on that sign theme, we talked quite a while ago about getting some no dumping signs for conservation, and spring is upon us and all the leaves and everything. Can we get some of those?
Yeah, I'll look for it, but guys gotta keep in mind, my budget's starting to get limited, and I just took that $500 hit for the inserts, so. You know, if I'm not gonna be able to touch the forestry money right now because we need to hold on to it for the grant, I've got limited funds, so I'll do what I can with the quotes.
Okay. Yeah, can we get a quote and see what it costs? I mean, I don't think we need a lot of them.
The DPW may actually be able to make, I know they used to be able to make signs.
Oh, yeah.
But they may be able to make like a no dumping.
Yeah, it's not fancy standard.
Maybe we can reach out to the DPW superintendent.
Well, I gotta meet with him like in the next couple days anyway, because I'll be in on Friday anyway, because apparently he's going to be doing some work on the DPW yard that he's gonna have to file an NOI for.
Their culvert collapsed. But yeah, maybe you can just ask them about if they can still make like no dumping signs.
Sure. Great, good idea, thanks.
And I've got documents here for you guys to sign. These are this one this is 2 copies of the determination for Mickey Dutton.
$54 Pine Acres. Yep.
The lady with the driveway.
And I thought the felt tree in the lake was a cool sight, which I thought was a very cool way to look at it. Order of conditions for Bill and June Hudson.
Has the person at Hemlock that was working with Brett submitted a diagram showing where those 4 trees are gonna go?
Well, that was addressed at the beginning of the meeting.
I'm
still waiting for him to submit the diagram, which is why he continued it. So I gotta talk to Brett tomorrow, because he actually went off to the other job with Ted Gorman, and he just finished that up, so he's gonna be going back to this job, so.
Okay.
He and I have been kind of trading phone calls right now. The dam, Townsend Harbor Road, steps. What's his name, Katernia? Jack?
Jack Katernia.
Yep.
I found this history of the dam interesting.
And that would be it from me.
All right.
Matt, if I could those pictures with regard to Peninsula?
You know, I got a tablet that I have, I'm gonna bring them with me.
Yeah, could you print up a few of them so we could pass them around and look and...
I can't right now.
Not now? Oh, you're not...
I'm not hooked up to that printer.
No, not for the sidewalk.
Yeah, like I said, I have a tablet that I'm gonna bring.
You're gonna bring that in
with
so we can all see that?
So we can just
Okay.
pass the tablet around.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Super.
Sea stumps.
Public comment?
Any comments from the commission before we adjourn tonight?
Just one thought, after listening to the tape from the last meeting, there was a lot of good stuff happening. I really liked the discussion on the town land things and also the trail grant.
Yeah, hats off to Bob on that. You did a really nice job assessing all that stuff.
It was really good. The place I got a little nervous, especially with this open meeting law stuff hanging over our head, is I think we need to be very, very careful about when we setting up little couple people to go do things. Those are committees. You know, the minute you give even 2 people an assignment to go work on behalf of the commission, they have to, I believe, and you can check with legal, they have to comply with open meeting law regarding posting meetings and minutes and things.
I disagree.
That's why I said check with counsel, because I'm not going to...
Because, I listened very carefully when council talked about this, because, I'm planning on setting up a trails working group to implement the grant. And I definitely don't want to have to take and post agendas, keep minutes, and all other stuff. And I went over it very carefully with Adam, and he said I was on firm ground so long as it wasn't a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission, and they didn't make any decisions, that the Conservation Commission would make all the decisions about expenditures of money and stuff.
So that's all I suggest, make sure we
Yep.
check with council.
Yep.
Just to stay squeaky clean.
Good?
What's the matter, you don't want to watch any more videos?
No. Thank you very much.
Any other announcements from commissioners? Seeing there's no public left, I'll accept a motion to adjourn to March 4th.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And good job, Mr. Chairman, good job.
Are we gonna be up here permanently, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
Why is that?
because the